Chapter 5, verses 1 through 100. 1. Those amongst you who are knowing ones in the truth and are righteous ones, conscientious ones, and fair ones, responsible ones, as well as virtuous ones, fulfill your agreements that you conclude with one another, but also keep the unwritten agreements that exist between you and the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, so that it shall be well with you. 2. You are allowed to take as your food everything from animals, mammals, as well as other creatures, non-mammals, and their blood, with the exception of that which is poisonous to you. Therefore you are allowed to partake of all four-footed animals and two-footed animals with claws, toes and shoes, hooves, with cloven hooves and with pads, flat feet, and everything that crawls and flies and swims, whether you keep it in your house, domesticated animals, or hunt at game, if you are permitted to hunt. But do not hunt in wild behavior, poaching, or out of pure lust for killing. 3. You are forbidden from partaking of beasts and animals and other creatures of all kinds that have passed away by themselves, because it is unclean, sick, poisonous, putrid, as well as everything that has been strangled, beheaded, or beaten to death, because the flesh suffers from being struck to death, beheaded, or strangled, or by any other method of killing involving torment, because of the movement, swinging wave of the psyche, leading to disfavor, loss, harm, and this affects your psyche and your attitude, behavior, because the torments of dying of the creature that has been maltreated and painfully killed in this wise are transferred to you and form your mentality and your activities, deeds. 4. And it is prohibited, forbidden, to you to use cadavers for your food which have been gnawed at by rapacious animals, predators, and rapacious creatures, predatory creatures, because rapacious animals, predators, and rapacious creatures, predatory creatures, do not have the breath, bacteria in their mouth, of people of your kind, humanity, but are mixed, polluted, contaminated with poison pathogens, thereby endangering your health and also your life if you take the flesh of gnawed cadavers as your food. Therefore it is recommended to you that you only take as your food good flesh that you yourselves slaughter in a correct wise and without torment. Therefore, however, you shall not eat any flesh of animals and other creatures that is served as a sacrificial offering on a sacrificial table, on a sacrificial stone or sacrificial fire by those who cannot understand the senselessness of such offerings. Sacrificial offerings. 5. And all of those amongst you who are connected to the truth of the laws and recommendations of the creation of all things, creation, see that you are not induced to make sacrificial offerings in foolishness and senselessness, because the truth of the laws and recommendations of the power of creation, does not require any sacrificial offerings in any form whatsoever. Therefore it is taught that also no animals, no creatures, and no people of your kind, human beings, as well as no fruits or other things shall be used as sacrificial offerings. Performing sacrificial offerings is a loathsome kind of perversion and has only been part of your behavior since time immemorial due to the fabulations, inventions of people of your kind, human beings, to assuage and propitiate your fabulated, conceived godheads and tin gods in your fear and chicken-heartedness, cowardice. By making sacrificial offerings of all kinds, your making of sacrificial offerings is no dignified, honorable, controlled, undertaking deed, but is a work of outlawry, disdain, and an abasement of that which is used as the sacrificial offering. And truly, no gods or tin gods can be placated by sacrificial offerings, because they are all equally unsubstantial and fabulated, conceived ghosts, phantoms, as are their liberators, angels, and demons. 6. Those amongst you who wish to find benevolence, kind-heartedness, grace, against your unknowledge of the truth, you will only be able to acquire it if you are well disposed towards the truth teaching of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all love, creation. And as you search for a place where you can find the real truth, then search for a true prophet who teaches you his teaching. But if there is no true prophet amongst you, then search for the spring of wisdom, in the place where the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life is taught in truliness. A place of this kind may be a particular location of the learning of the truth, or it may be in your neighbor's house, or on the summit of a mountain, in the desert, in a shelter, tent, on the shores of bodies of water, or under trees. As you are searching for the real truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all life, creation, then it requires your endeavor of searching, because only those who truly search will find what they are looking for. And if you truly search and have found the truth of the creation and its laws and recommendations, and have put down, finished, your clothing of searching course of learning, and have completed it in the first part, found the truth, then you shall no longer turn your back on, turn away from what you have learned. And if you are hampered in any wise on your way of searching for the truth by people of your kind, fellow human beings, or are prevented from visiting a location or a place where the truth teaching is taught, then neither the hostility of an individual nor of an entire people shall mislead you into contravening the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all life, creation. And if there are several of you together searching for the truth, then help one another in righteousness, conscientiousness, in a wise that is pleasing to the truth, truthful, but do not help one another in hostility and inequitableness, unfairness, in unrighteousness, consciencelessness, or in virtuelessness, and not either in acts of gavolt of any kind, in vice or evil desires. Vices, wantonness, pathological cravings, urges. 7. Those amongst you who are unknowing ones in the truth, you attempt to find out your forenation, destiny, by objects referred to as a lost fill. But this, like legerdemain, magic, and making fabulations from reading the stars, is only a harmful, deceptive hallucination, delusional construction of evil blabbermouths, charlatans, and deceivers and false seers who delude you and demand possessions in payment, money, from you for it. And do not fear their threats that you will be struck by a calamity or other terrible things, which they talk you into believing through their cunning and let you fall into grievance and fear, because these deceivers of you are entirely powerless, unable to make truthful, unfalsified predictions, although this is a capability of the true prophets and the true wise heralds, seers, and harbingers, all of whom never take any payment for their insights into the future, just as they do not undertake commerce or swagger or boast with their skill ability, because they are truly wise ones and are dedicated to modesty and do not make a fuss about themselves. Losfil, PL Losfile, is the German word for small arrows used for soothsaying which are dropped from the hand, allowing predictions to be made based on their positions. Similarly to African stones, bones or shells, etc., used by so-called soothsayers of either sex, even in the new time, who however also practice card tricks and other hocus-pocus in this wise nowadays. 8. All those amongst you, do not doubt your knowledge of the truth when you hear the blabbermouths, charlatans, and deceivers and the false seers telling lies about your forenation, destiny, because all of their words are mere slander, calumny, of the truth. Do not take their false words as the truth, so that you do not begin to despair due to their deception, and so you do not fear what the time to come, future, will bring you. 9. Choose for yourselves the truth of the creation as true knowledge and its laws and recommendations, and therefore the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life proceeding from them, as your avowal of the truth, but do not transform it into a belief teaching which in its unworthiness and lying about the truth is only of use to fabulated, invented gods and tin gods and their priests, believers and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods, not however to the truth. 10. And do not create any godliness, religion, or any subgodlinesses, sex cults, from the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and therefore do not create from it either any handed-down knowledge, customs, with particular rules, rites, just as you shall not create any customs from the teaching, so that the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life may again and again allow you to recognize, see, new things in everything, and so that you may always rejoice in a new ripening, further development, evolution. 11. Do not make your prayers, invocations, edification to your inner world consciousness at specific times or in a specific number, so that you do not fall into habitualness. And if you no longer speak true prayers, invocations, edification to yourselves, and you take refuge in senseless babbling, then you are doing the same as the believers in godliness, religion, and subgodlinesses, sex cults, who pray and give supplications to gods and tin gods, and who fallaciously believe that the latter might be listening to them. Turning towards a prayer at a particular time and in a particular number shall only be considered if you people of your kind, fellow human beings, gather together for the purpose of jointly partaking in contemplation, meditation, and a prayer to yourselves. 12. Only make prayers, invocations, edification, at all times to yourselves, to your own inner world, consciousness, but never to a godhead or to a tin god or someone of your kind, human being, because only your inner world consciousness is the factor from which you obtain everything that you hope and wish for through your own power. But be certain, knowing that you have to create everything yourselves that you are achieving from your inner world, consciousness. And as you make prayers, invocations, edification, to yourselves, then this may be during the day or the night, at sunrise or sunset, and at any time which is convenient for you for this purpose. 13. And as you make your prayers, invocations, edification, to your inner world, consciousness, so you may do this in every state, condition, in which you currently find yourselves, whether your bodies and limbs, extremities, are clean or unclean, or while you are carrying out a work on the path of idleness, while walking along, or when you are lying on your bed, because your inner world, consciousness, does not care about this, is not concerned about all this, but only about what you bring near to it through your prayers. 14. And it is instructed, taught, to you what is also allowed for you to organize as your food in accordance with the laws and recommendations of the creation, namely that you train animals, mammals, and other creatures, non-mammals, for hunting so that they catch other animals and other creatures for you, and therefore eat from all which they catch for you, and do not be afraid, because you are not doing unrightfully in this. 15. All good things are allowed to you, and also the food and drink of other people shall be allowed to you if it is brought to you, or if you are staying in another land abroad. The only foods which shall be forbidden to you are those which make you ill or sick, or which are poisonous to you. And fermented juices, alcohol such as wine, beer, spirits, etc., shall only be forbidden to you in large quantities, so that you do not become drunk. If you enjoy it in moderation, then nothing speaks against it, and you are not doing unrightfully. 16. It is not allowed for you to have congress, sexual intercourse, with male or female children before they have come of age, reached adulthood. Also, it is not allowed for you to have congress, sexual intercourse, with untouched ones, virgin ones, whether male or female, unless you have made a mutual agreement of marriage in the presence of bystanders, witnesses, through which lying with one another, having sexual intercourse, is also permitted before the bond marriage is entered into. Concluded. 17. If you openly, publicly, or secretly visit whores and male whores, then you, as they are committing prostitution, sexual culpability, therefore you make yourselves contemptible and are just as dignityless as they are. 18. And those amongst you who deny or slander, calumniate the truth, your deeds shall without doubt be brought to naught, and you shall be amongst the losers. Therefore you may think about all truth that carries in itself in manifold wises guidelines, guiding principles, for your well-being, health, and for the hygiene of yourselves. 19. And as you think about the truth, then also consider that your hygiene of body and limbs is of immense importance for your well-being, health, that therefore you shall wash yourselves with water every day, as often as the circumstances require. Therefore it is recommended to you that you wash yourselves as appropriate, required, at each need, necessity. Therefore wash diligently, thoroughly, properly, your face and your hands, and also your arms up to the elbows or higher as appropriate, required. And also wipe your head, through your hair, with wet hands, and wash your feet up to the ankles or higher as appropriate, required. And as it is appropriate, required. When your body is dirty, then clean it also with water, or clean it entirely. Take a bath, as appropriate, required, without however doing more than is appropriate, required, or doing so every day. And clean your hands duly, properly, when you come from the privy, toilet, WC, and therefore you shall clean yourselves duly, properly, if you have had sexual intercourse, and therefore also clean yourselves diligently, thoroughly, properly, if you have satisfied yourselves with your own hand on your private parts, sexual organ. And if you do not have any water available for cleansing, washing, then take fermented juices, alcohol such as wine, beer, spirits, etc., or clean fabric, cloths, rags, and clean yourselves with them, because it shall not be that you allow your well-being, health, to be harmed by having impurity on your body and your limbs, extremities. 20. Listen to the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that you may be connected to the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all existence, creation, and that you may obey yourselves and fulfill the laws and recommendations if you accept them, because truly this is the only wise in which you will have nothing to fear, because you know very well what in you and outside you is equitableness, fairness. And what is inequity? Unfairness, by means of which you will be able to determine what you shall not do in unrighteousness, consciencelessness, but what you owe to righteousness, conscientiousness. 21. Therefore, it is recommended to you that you shall be steadfast in the cause of the truth and the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all existence, creation, so that you can bear witness to the equitableness, fairness, and stand up for it. And no person of your kind, human being, or any group of people of your kind, group of fellow human beings, or even an entire people shall be able to mislead you into being anything other than fair, providing you remain true to your steadfastness. Consider that being fair emanates from the truth teaching as a state, nature of truth, as this teaching carries manifold guidelines, signpostings, in itself, and shows you the way of your existence, life, that you may walk on it, and that things may go well with you. 22. The real truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all existence, creation, promises to all those who are connected to the truth and who do good deeds that they will find forgiveness in themselves for things of falsehood that they do unknowingly and only understand it after they have already committed the misdeed. Their cognition and the atonement, changing to the better, of the incorrect action will be the great reward that they create and receive in themselves. Truly, misdeed, error, alone is the way that leads to cognition and unfolding, evolution. Because it is only through committing misdeeds, errors, that people of your kind, you human beings, learn to differentiate, understand things so that you become knowing, conscious, change yourselves and become connected to the truth, equitableness, fairness, and righteousness, conscientiousness, as well as evaluation, cognition, and true discernment, rationality. 23. Those, however, who persist in unknowledge and remain far from the truth and condemn the signs, evidence, of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all love creation. They are in their own inner nature occupants of a shadow world, hell, that they have created in themselves. 24. Always consider the goodness of the wellspring of all love creation, which it has said in its laws and recommendations, so that you do not strive to raise your hands against another people, wage war, in order to subject it to yourselves, because as freedom is something that each of your kind, human being, is entitled to, so all peoples are entitled to it. Therefore you shall not split them up or bring them under external dominance. Do not be lightless, blind, in your obsession, greed for might over other people of your kind, human beings, and neither be obsessed with greedy for might over other peoples, but hold back your hands and your desire for it. And do not assume that the ones you have subjugated will eternally remain your subjugated ones, because truly they will grow in their number, multiply, and strike back at a time when they have become strong enough against you and are more knowing in many things. And consequently, they will no longer allow themselves to be suppressed. Trust in true freedom, which you shall grant to each one of you and to all peoples, so that you keep the peace amongst one another and do not wage any battles, wars, against one another. 25. And truly, if you heed the truth and are connected to it, then it will always be with you. Thus you also heed freedom and peace. And if you heed the truth and are connected to it, then you awaken in yourselves 12 leaders which accompany you at all times as true love, as esteem, as deference, as kind-heartedness, as dignity, as virtues, as faithfulness, as equitableness, fairness, as righteousness, conscientiousness, as uprightness, as modesty, and as obligation, responsibility, and determine your deeds in your existence, life. 26. See, the truth is always with you, but you have to make it your own, because simply the presence of the truth does not bring any benefit, success, unless you use it. Therefore, be connected to the truth, and heed it when you direct your prayer to your inner world consciousness, when you distribute your alms, and when you make a considerable commitment, effort, interest, attention, to learning about the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. And if you have committed misdeeds in the past, Then you free yourselves of them if you are turned towards the truth and recognize the things in their reality. Thus you can create a garden of the truth in yourselves through which streams of cognition, love, peace, freedom, and consonance, harmony flow. However, anyone amongst you who falls away from this way of the truth and returns to the path of the unknowledge that is strewn with thorns, the human being is truly straying from the straight way. 27. Those amongst you who are ready to break your bond agreement with the truth, you are thereby hardening your inner nature yourselves, and therefore you are cursing yourselves in your striving, because you are falsifying the words of the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and therefore the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all existence, creation. 28. And those amongst you who are false scribes and false explainers, interpreters, who shall write and teach the truth, you are falsifying and mixing up, changing the true words from their correct places so that people of your kind, human beings, forget the majority, largest part, of the truth teaching and the admonishments of the true prophets. And truly, since time immemorial, it has not ceased that treachery on their part against the truth teaching has been discovered, so that only a few things have been retained which approach the truth and are given by the teaching of the prophets. 29. Those amongst you who are searching for the real truth, forgive the fallible ones and killers, destroyers, of the true truth teaching and do not heed them, but remain sublime above their terrible doings and strive all the more to find the way of the truth and of its teaching, so that you may follow it and you can rejoice in the good reward of the truth. 30. Truly, the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life is not just intended for one people, but for all peoples of your world, and therefore the truth teaching stands in the bond, agreement, with all peoples of the world who follow many false prophets and from whose false teachings a godliness, religion, and many sub-godlinesses, cults, sects were created, but truly, in the past the truthfully truth teaching was given to them already by true prophets far from outside the line of Nocademian. But they have forgotten everything with which they had been admonished, and they have turned to false prophets and their false teachings. And because the false prophets and their false teachings were regarded as true by your forefathers and forebears, ancestors, and by all peoples, they followed the false guidelines, leading thoughts, and kindled enmity and hatred amongst one another, leading to battles, wars, and evil acts of Goblet which you have maintained as their far distant descendants, children of children, etc., up to the present day, because you do not want to know the awful things that your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, had done by following the false prophets and their false teachings. And as you do not want to know what your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, did falsely with regard to the truth teaching, so you do not want to know what you are doing in the same wise, and are thereby trampling all things into the ground which are life's true values. 31. Truly, the real prophets came to you, and come to you up to the new time, started the new time from 1844 of the 19th century CE, and it is they who reveal to you time and time again many things about the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation. And there is always much of it which you keep hidden from yourselves and overlook out of chicken-heartedness, cowardice, because you do not want it to be true, and because you have learned it wrongly, through the false prophets and their false teachings. But it is only in the teaching of the prophets, which is the teaching of the truthfulness, that no blemish, doubt, no falsehood, deviousness, and no lie is to be found, but the scribes charged by the prophets have falsified it, so that finally a true prophet will come to give the truth teaching in writing in order to really set a light of the real truth for you and provide the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life in a clear source book. And truly, through the source book of the true prophet from the line of Nocademian, all those will be led in the new time from the middle of the 20th century, who are looking for their inner joy in the truth teaching and will henceforth lead themselves out of their darkness of their going into confusion to the light of the truth. And as people of your kind, human beings direct lead themselves on the right way through the teaching of the prophets, love and consonance, harmony, as well as peace and freedom will come about. 32. Truly, anyone amongst you who says that true prophets are only blabbermouths, charlatans, and deceivers, whereas the false prophets are the true ones, You not only would like to destroy the truth, but also the true prophets themselves, because as they admonish you to the truth and discover your lies, they are like thorns in your eyes. Truly, despite your lies and your guilefulness, intrigues, the true prophets and their teaching are superior to you who are fallaciously searching for your kingdom of heaven in the heaven of a god or tin god, realm of gods and tin gods, through your godly religious beliefs, assumptions, despite the fact that these are only pseudo-natures fabulated, invented by people of your kind, human beings. And you do not want to understand that the kingdom of heaven is in you, as is the kingdom of the shadow world, hell, because truly heaven and the shadow world, hell, are a location, condition, in your cells that you form according to your knowledge and unknowledge, whether for good or for evil. You yourselves alone have power over it, because only you alone form your inner world, consciousness, and your psyche. 33. And there are many amongst you who say that you are sons and daughters of a god, or tin god, and are his darlings. But ask yourselves, why does he then punish you for your missteps, vices, guilt, unvirtues, offenses, as is taught to you by the false prophets and their false teachings and priests and other servants of gods or servants of tin gods? Truly, punishment which results in harm to body and life and psyche is a work of evil which you create in your thoughts and feelings through insights, ideas, and which people of your kind, fellow human beings, concoct, hatch, and have concocted, hatched, invented, in your cells in order to practice revenge and retaliation for your own pleasure, gratification, and for your own craving, delectation. Truly, the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all life, creation, do not know any punishment of this kind whatsoever. Merely the recommendation of punishment that teaches that each error brings about distinct consequences from which emanates a recognition of the fallibility and of balancing, making good change, learning to do better and to do right. And therefore this recommendation of the primal power of all life, creation, shall be an ideal in order to form the jurisdiction and its deeds of punishment in the same wise through your ability, so that no one of your kind, human being, may be harmed in body and life or in their psyche, and so that punishment may only take place in order to balance out, make good change, i.e. learning to do better and to do right. And what shall be given is a stay for a certain time and a suitable place of fulfillment of guidelines, secluded island, secluded place, where the fallible ones can dedicate themselves to the truth teaching in order to change and improve, but where they also shall be responsible for their prosperity and adversity, and therefore for their own provision, subsistence. 34. The primal power of all life, creation, does not forgive whomsoever it wants, and it does not punish whomsoever it wants, because it merely gives its laws and recommendations which you shall follow or disregard according to your free will, so that you yourselves decide what is right or wrong for you and your nature, attitude, according to the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all life, creation, from which it is given that you think and act subject to your own responsibility. And you yourselves influence and form your feelings, your inner world, consciousness, and psyche, so that you may forgive yourselves or punish yourselves according to your own consideration, discretion, as is taught to you by the true prophets, to whose teaching many of you are traitors. 35. However, your betrayal will last for a long time, far into the time to come, future, beyond the new time when, following a long interruption in the line of the prophets, the last true prophet brings you the source, book, of the truthfully writing of the teaching of the prophets. He it is who will make the things of the teaching clear to you, as has never been achieved before in the fullness and ampleness, quantity, so that you may not say that no bringer of joyful news and no warner has come to you. And therefore it will be that in the new time, in truth, the last true prophet from the line of Nocademian, the originator of the true prophets, will come to you as a bringer of joyful news, but also as a warner. And his words and writings will be as powerful as never before, so that you may finally grasp and differentiate, understand, between the truth of the teaching of the prophets and the untruth of the teachings of the false prophets and their priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods who drive you into beliefs, assumptions of their godliness, religion, and who enslave you in your thoughts and feelings and in your inner world, consciousness. 36. And truly, all true prophets from the line of Nocademian who have gone and taught before, They told you that you shall turn to the truth teaching and the grace of the laws and recommendations of the creation as individuals and as peoples. And truly, none of the true prophets from the line of Melchizedek are ever envoys of gods and tin gods, but they are children of people of your kind, human children, from your midst who, through their own willingness and diligence, activity, assiduousness, learn their knowledge and their wisdom and everything associated with it through their own power, which stays alive, however, through a spirit body, spirit form, which is ancient of days, age-old, vastly eons older than yours. 37. And truly, on your world since time immemorial, true prophets have only come about, appeared from the line of Melchizedek, from whom true instructors took the teaching of the prophets and taught it. But these were also persecuted and slandered, calumniated, and exposed to persecution by people of your kind, human beings, just like the true prophets themselves. 38. The teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and therefore the teaching of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all existence, creation, is given for all peoples of the world, so that no one people shall have more than another, and none shall be disadvantaged. And as you enter a country, you may listen to the same teaching of the prophets and follow it, so that you do not have to turn your back on the foreign country, and you do not have to turn around as ones who are lost. 39. And if a country contains an over-courageous and almighty people in which Goblet is practiced on strangers, or in which strangers are limited in their freedom and in their knowledge, then do not enter this country, so that you are not exposed to Goblet, terror, and coercion. Do not enter the country or move into its cities until its people and its authority have moderated and welcome you in benevolence and friendship, or when they leave their country. 40. Do not enter a house or a country unless its inhabitants are endowed with kind-heartedness. Therefore, you shall only go through the gate and move forwards if you are certain, without doubt, of being welcomed in benevolence and are sure of trust. 41. And if you, whether man or woman, enter a house or a country, then greet in a seemly, commensurate, wise those who are within it. And if you are wearing a cover on your head as you enter and at the greeting, then remove it from your head, and thereby show that you have freedom and dignity. Therefore you shall do the same. And if you have covered your face, then remove the covering when you enter a house or a country, so that the others may recognize, your uprightness, and cover your head and your face from the light rays of the sun, against the weather, influences of the weather, and against sand and storm, so that your skin and your head, brain, are not harmed and do not sicken. But never cover your head before gods and tin gods, and before people of your kind, human beings, who demand the same from you, because it is disgraceful to have to cover your head in submission. And therefore do not cover your face before people of your kind, fellow human beings, because covering the face means concealing evil, defilement, or unright. Therefore go forth, and wear your covering for your head and your face if the condition, situation equals sun, weather condition, sandstorm, demands it, but do not allow yourselves to fall into submissiveness through wearing coverings for your head and face. 42. And whatever the condition, position, situation, consider that only you have might over yourselves, and only you determine which way you want to take and which deeds you want to carry out, and therefore which thoughts and feelings you want to have. Truly, no other people of your kind, fellow human beings, can have might over you if you do not voluntarily allow it to happen. Therefore keep a distance between yourselves and people of your kind, fellow human beings, so that you always remain yourselves and solely exert might over yourselves, and that you do not fall into servitude, bondage, or slavery to people of your kind, fellow human beings. 43. And wherever you go on earth, make sure that you do not wander about senselessly for many years, but that you become settled in a place and make efforts, work, where you can spend your evening of life. And therefore make sure that you do not wander about for 40 years or more on earth, with the result that you do not amass, save up, what is possible for you, and that you do not have any provision, support in old age. And therefore make sure that you do not settle down amongst an insurrectional people, so that you will not be troubled in your life, or at the evening of your old age, evening of life. Truly, make sure that you work hard in your life and set aside, save up, what is possible for you, so that you will have a sufficiency at the evening of your old age, evening of life, and will not have to starve. Because consider that if you have daughters and sons, then these cannot look after you in your old age, because they go their own ways and raise, found, their own clan, family. Therefore you must support yourselves in old age, supply yourselves with what is necessary. 44. And be righteous, conscientious, in all things, so that you are esteemed amongst all people of your kind, human beings. So it does not happen that one amongst you is accepted, considered, by people of your kind, fellow human beings, whilst another is rejected, because you will be assessed and treated by people of your kind, fellow human beings, according to your knowledge, according to your deeds, according to your virtues, and according to your wisdom. 45. And if others reach out their hands towards you to kill you, to do you harm, or to slander, calumniate you, then do not do the same to them, and do not reach out your hands against them to kill them, to do them harm, or to slander, calumniate them, because you shall neither kill in Ausartung, nor bring about harm in Ausartung. Neither shall you bring forth slanders, calumnies, out of hatred or irrationality. And forgive the stalkers, persecutors, who want to kill you, to do harm to you, or to slander, calumniate, and decry, deny you, because they are poor in their inner world consciousness, evil in their thoughts and feelings, confused in their endeavor, striving, and therefore depraved in their considerations, reflecting. Therefore forgive your stalkers, persecutors, and strive to inform them of their wrongdoing, and instruct them with regard to the laws and recommendations of the primal power. Creation, so that they change, alter, to the truth, and so that peace will exist between you and them, and that you may go forth safely along your way. 46. And you shall not voluntarily and falsely, out of false love or false friendship, take and bear the blame and atone for something that others have heaped upon themselves, so that no fire of guilt may kindle in you, in which you will burn, whilst the malefactors, lawbreakers, enjoy great reward for their guilt and their infamous actions, crimes. And do not take the blame of others upon yourselves in return for gratification, payment, so that you will have to atone for it, whilst the guilty ones enjoy their freedom and great reward. 47. And if you have done unright in any wise, then think over your lapse, error, and be remorseful, so that you are not obliged to hide before people of your kind, fellow human beings, as unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and remorseless ones, incorrigible ones. 48. And consider that if you kill, murder, someone of your kind, human being, whether it be out of hatred or revenge or jealousy, in a battle, war, or in strife, then that is the same as if many had been killed, murdered, because many remain behind in sorrow, as if they were themselves killed, murdered. Therefore do not kill, murder, people of your kind, human beings. Because however you justify killing, it is against all laws and recommendations of the creation, in which nothing rightful can be found which could justify your killing someone of your kind, human being, on any grounds whatsoever, for any reason. 49. And if you preserve the life of someone of your kind, human being, then that is the same as if you had preserved the lives of many, because none are left behind who wail in sorrow, but those who go forth in gladness and embrace one another in joy and happiness. 50. The reward for those who kill and wage battles, wars, or strive to kindle chaos in the land is that they are the ones who are ostracized by people of your kind, human beings, and are bound on either hand or foot, clapped in irons, by the authority or the jurisdiction, and are brought for punishment to a place of fulfillment of guidelines, secluded places or islands, or are driven out of the country, so that ignominy is heaped upon them, and that they may learn rightfully from it, and become righteous ones, conscientious ones. However, heed those who feel sorry for their misdeeds and present themselves before the jurisdiction for punishment, and give themselves up into its gavolt, because you shall impose upon them a milder punishment due to their remorse and their own admission, self-indictment, compared to those who first have to be brought to account through a fulfillment of guidelines and only then feel sorry. But do not heed the remorse and atonement, excuse, of the fallible ones against the laws and the standing rules and regulations if they are only declaring their remorse and atonement, excuse, through a negotiation procedure with the jurisdiction, because this approach is only taken in order to achieve a milder punishment. Therefore, such remorse and atonement, excuse, is only done with the intention, purpose equals means to an end, of making the punishment mild. 51. Be afraid of doing unright, and search for the way of the unification with the truth, and strive for it according to your cognition and understanding, so that it shall be well with you. 52. Do not be like the ones unknowing of the truth, and the unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, who strive for everything that is on the entire earth, and nevertheless are never satisfied. And even if they have everything, then truly they believe that they can buy themselves free from everything which may befall, happen to them, and what they believe they are able to deflect from themselves through their wealth. All terrible things, and all illness, malediction, unfortune, and death. But truly, you cannot deflect either terrible things or illness or death or malediction, unfortune, from yourselves with your possessions and wealth. Therefore you have to face everything that befalls you, so that you may always make the best out of it in yourselves, in your thoughts and feelings. 53. Truly, you shall make the best out of death, so that in yourselves you may be full of peace and love, as well as full of joy and happiness and full of consonance, harmony, when you become aware of your dying, and you leave your world in which you have led your life. But consider that you cannot take anything from this world with you, neither possessions nor wealth, neither food nor drink, neither jewelry, adornment, nor garments, clothing, neither people of your kind, human beings, nor beasts or animals and other creatures who might be able to protect you in death. 54. Be willing to learn the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, so that you understand all laws and recommendations of the life as they are given through the creation. And as you follow them in honesty, you can escape from the fire of your own unknowledge and your dread fear of the death, which gives you great anguish. 55. And regarding the man who steals and the thieving woman, do not do unright to them either, and do not cut off their hands as a retaliation for their outrage, misdemeanor, misdeed, defilement, so that they do not suffer terrible punishment, but are taken in a fair, commensurate, wise for punishment at a place of fulfillment of guidelines, secluded place, secluded island. 56. Act according to the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all life, creation, which is itself the kingdom of firmaments, universe, and all earths, worlds, planets, so that you are fair and do not mete out punishments as you wish, rather that you are forgiving and fair to all fallible ones in equal measure, both to man and woman, when you are punishing unfairness, irresponsibility. 57. And if you are sure of the remorse and the apology of fallible ones, and also that they will improve themselves and become righteous, conscientious, then be truly benevolent and forgiving. 58. Those amongst you who have knowledge of the truth, do not grieve about those who rashly fall prey to unknowledge and untruth. And do not take their words as truthful when they say that they are truly believers in the truth, because truly their thoughts are only caught up in a belief assumptions, but in their attitude, mentality, they are of another sense and far from outside all truthfulness. 59. Therefore, there are many amongst you who like to listen to each lie of the false prophets, in order to pass on the lie to others who have not yet come to it, not yet heard anything of it. And they displace the words of the truth teaching from their places, twist, falsify, so that you might accept it, but be on your guard when they bring you the false teachings. 60. Heed those amongst you who are time-honored, habitual, listeners of falseness, deviousness, and are swallowers of benefiters from things that are not allowed, things that are forbidden. Because when they come to you, then it is only because they want to ensnare you in the untruth and lead you away from the real truth. However, do not condemn them, but turn yourselves away from them, or, as far as it is possible, teach, instruct them in the real truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all wisdom, creation, so that they may become knowing in the truth. 61. And if you turn yourselves away from them, then they cannot cause you any harm. But if you are deciding between them, between the individuals, then decide between them, between the individuals, in equitableness, fairness, and according to the attitude, mentality of the individual. Truly, people of your kind, fellow human beings, love it when you are fair. 62. When, however, you are deciding on unfair, irresponsible deeds and thoughts of people of your kind, fellow human beings, then only decide by keeping yourselves aloof, remaining neutral, from the deeds and thoughts and whatever else that is terrible, and do not brand, condemn, and damn those over whose deeds and thoughts and whatever else you have to decide, so that you may reach a fair, objective appraisal evaluation. And at all times be aware that when you have to decide on the deeds and thoughts, and whatever else of people of your kind, fellow human beings. That you are only deciding on these things, but not on people of your kind, human beings, as people of your kind, human beings. Because truly, someone of your kind, human being, as someone of your kind, human being, is inviolable in his or her dignity, because it is only his or her deeds and thoughts and whatever else that are reprehensible villainous. Whereas someone of your kind, human being, can never be subjected to appraisal evaluation, as the like, as such, and therefore cannot either be evaluated through a decision. Because truly, as a person of your kind, human being, each person of your kind, human being, is of equal worth, value, through the laws of the primal wellspring of all love, creation, and therefore a created creation, life form, of excellence, the best, without treachery and reproach. 63. You shall not make yourselves a judge over people of your kind, fellow human beings, because people of your kind, human beings, cannot be subjected to a decision as such. Therefore it is not possible to judge, legally assess, i.e. condemn, people of your kind as human beings. So it is only possible to judge the deeds and thoughts as well as the false consideration, attitude, and other things. Therefore heed in this wise regard the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all love, creation, so that you always decide truthfully and arrive at the commensurate judgment and the punishment. Make the right judgment. In doing so, do not turn your back on the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all love, creation, so that you may always do what is right in all things as well. 64. Truly, the prophets have brought you the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life in which there is guidance and light for you. And they have taught you what is right and what is unright, so that all those unknowing of the truth and those knowing of the truth, and those who are proficient, versed in the laws and recommendations of the primal power, creation, shall uphold everything and be guardians for the teaching. And therefore the teaching of the prophets is brought so that the authority and jurisdiction may also rightfully do their duty and issue their evaluations and decrees in equitableness, fairness, so that people of your kind, human beings, may acquire equitableness, fairness in all things and may be led, ruled rightfully, and that no one amongst you has to fear any inequity, unfairness, from the authority or jurisdiction. 65. However, if the authority or the jurisdiction does not act according to equitableness, fairness, then it shall be removed, deposed by the people, and a new authority or jurisdiction shall be appointed. And both the authority and the jurisdiction shall decide and lead according to the law and legislation in any wise that is rightful, so that equitableness, fairness, may be granted to all alike, irrespective of whether man or woman, rich or poor, or someone has a name, title, or someone has the standing of a common citizen or of a beggar. 66. And consider that when you are practicing equitableness, fairness, that you do not heed the old words of false prophets, priests and servants of gods and servants of tin gods who slanderously, calumniously, and fallaciously teach that you shall demand terrible punishment and revenge for misdeeds and iniquity, unfairness, and other disingenuous things and outrages, crimes, such as a life for a life, an eye for an eye, a nose for a nose, an ear for an ear, a tooth for a tooth, and commensurate retaliation for other injuries. But truly, the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all creation teach the truth which is opposed to punishment and revenge, so that you shall not exercise revenge, punishment, or retaliation, and shall not cause harm to or hurt, torment, injure, either body or life, or either the inner world, consciousness, or the psyche of the fallible ones. Because you shall forgive as is given through the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all creation, so that you do not punish the blame of another by bringing blame upon yourselves as well. And if you do not direct yourselves according to this, then you are no better than those who have made themselves guilty. Rather, you are then unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and the same as them. 67. Since time immemorial, the true prophets have brought the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and reveal it as it was revealed already before you. And they give their entire existence, life, to undertake their duty and to announce to you the guidance and the light of the truth teaching in order to fulfill what was already given to your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, for learning as guidance and admonishment, so that it shall be well with you. 68. Therefore you shall direct yourselves according to what has been revealed to you through the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all existence, creation. But if you do not comply with what has been revealed to you, then you are indignant ones against the real truth. 69. Therefore it is said to you time and time again that the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life has been revealed to you as fulfillment of what was already earlier revealed to your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears. And the truth teaching is given to you, so that you may be guardians over it, and pass it on to your daughters and sons, and to all those who are looking for it, and manifest their thirst for knowledge. 70. However, do not fight with Goblet terror against those who have evil penchants, talent, against the truth, and come to you to dissuade you from the truth teaching. Rather remain in a peaceful wise with intelligent words, so that you are able to instruct the adversaries in a fitting, proper, wise, clear guidelines, guiding principles. And distinct ways have been given to each one of you through the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all wisdom, creation, so that you may follow them, through your own ruling decision, and in the freedom of your own will. And truly, the source of all wisdom, creation, does not expose you to temptation, delusion does not put you to the test, through its laws and recommendations, because such deeds are only the work of people of your kind, work of human beings. Therefore do not compete with one another in temptations, delusions, trials, regarding who is connected to the truth and who is not connected to it. However, do compete to perform good deeds with one another and also alone, so that you may defeat evil in all things and be knowing, conscious, and wise and not stingy, but generous instead, and learn the teaching of the prophets, the teaching of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the formation of all things, creation, amongst one another, so that you bring about enlightenment in yourselves concerning all those things about which you are unknowing or at odds. 71. Do not wish for yourselves a return to the deceitful jurisdiction of all the false prophets, their priests and servants, hands helpers, of gods and tin gods, or to the unright from the olden days, former times of unknowledgeness, and do not wish to follow the hypocritical jurisdiction of the false prophets of the present day. Neither the jurisdiction of those false prophets and priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods who carry out their mischief in later days. Future. 72. Do not take unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, or unfair ones, irresponsible ones, as your friends, because they are self-appointed friends, enemies against you. And if you do name them as your friends nevertheless, then truly you will soon belong to them, as you yourselves become unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, and unfair ones, irresponsible ones. But strive in yourselves to create friendly thoughts and feelings for the unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, so that you do not confront them unfairly and do not bear disgust or hatred and other things against them, but rather that you strive to be helpful to them when they fall into misery, when they need your kind-hearted words, or when they want your instruction. 73. The hearts, thoughts, and feelings of the unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, harbor an illness to which they constantly hurry, which is why they always fear that they will be overtaken by vexation and downfall, misfortune, which means they cannot achieve any victory over themselves or any other event of goodness. Therefore they require your help and your knowledge regarding the truth teaching, so that they may feel sorry and recognize, the truth in their hearts, thoughts, and feelings, which they are concealing, falsifying. 74. And the unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, who swear a solemn oath for their belief, assumptions, infabulated, invented, gods and tin gods, and who cast their face down into the dust before their gods and tin gods, kiss the ground, and fall on their knees before them, and pray to them, and pay homage to glorify them. They stand destructively before the truth and in relation to you when you are knowing ones and fair ones, responsible ones, and righteous ones, conscientious ones, and virtuous ones, and truly the unknowing ones and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, and unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, perform their terrible deeds conceitedly, so they are ones who are lost from the truth. 75. And those who believe in fabulated, invented gods and tin gods, as these all are, they have turned away from the truth and have assembled together in peoples of godliness, belief, and fight, wage war, against other peoples with death and destruction if they belong to another godliness, religion, and have different gods and tin gods. And all amongst them lie, by saying that their godhead or their tin god is the same and the only one for all peoples, and for each godliness, religion, and for all subgodlinesses, sex cults, that only one God exists for all. And all the believers in gods and tin gods, they lie that their god or tin god loves them, and all people of their kind, human beings, and is kind-hearted to all, providing it is loved and prayed to in submissiveness by its believers. However, those who are unbelievers and have rejected it or disapprove it with words and thoughts and feelings shall be met with the accusation of reproach and made to fear, so that they receive a punishment from their god or tin god, which shall be meted out to them by believers. But truly, this is not part of the wellspring of all love creation, because its laws and recommendations are directed towards true love and the well-being of all creatures, life forms, towards their peace and freedom and consonance, harmony. And all these high values are granted by the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all love creation, without differentiation between the type of creature, life form, because truly, its laws and recommendations do not demand from any of its creatures, life forms, even one iota of punishment for delinquencies, transgressions, offenses, wrongdoings, etc., because each creature, life form, imposes a punishment on itself through a delinquency, transgression, offense, wrongdoing, etc., from which it may learn and recognize and become more knowing and more wise. And truly, the misdeeds, errors, that you commit are stones on the way of cognition and of unfolding, evolution, that you are treading. Therefore you shall pick up the stones which are the misdeeds, errors, and place them carefully at the side of the way, learn, so as to pick them up once again and continue carrying them, continue learning when it is necessary. 76. And truly, on your way of cognition and of unfolding, evolution, you are walking alone in yourselves, because it is in yourselves that you have to do the work of learning, the work of investigation, research, recognition, and unfolding, evolution. From outside of yourselves you only have sight and hearing and taste and touch, as well as the words and the teaching of the true prophets from which you can accomplish everything that you have to investigate, research, and to recognize. See in yourselves, so that you may become knowing, conscious, and wise, and therefore righteous, conscientious, and fair, responsible, and fulfill the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all modesty, creation. 77. And if you follow the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and therefore the truth of the laws and recommendations of the wellspring of all equitableness, fairness, creation, then you can be assured that you will find in it true friendship, as can never be amongst people of your kind, fellow human beings. Even when you gather in a great crowd to defeat the untruth and become friends in inseparability, connectedness. 78. Keep yourselves distant from those who make a mockery of your love for the truth and joke about it amongst people of their kind, like-minded ones, and amongst all those whom they meet. 79. And keep yourselves distant from those who make a mockery and a joke of it when you dedicate yourselves to the truth teaching, or when you make prayers, invocations, edification, to your own inner world consciousness, because they do it out of not understanding and go around in foolishness. 80. The mockers who make jokes about the truth are those who reproach the truth-loving ones for their righteousness, conscientiousness, and equitableness, fairness, and virtues, because they themselves are too stupid to recognize, the truth and to understand it, because they prefer to be malefactors, doers of misdeeds, and truth deniers. 81. But also be fair to those who mock and joke with the truth when they approach, harass, attack you, and you cannot escape. Avoid them. Treat them as people of your kind, human beings, and do not heed their wrongdoings, but strive to point out to them with clear words and without gavolt, terror, what they are doing wrong. Do not threaten them, and do not make them worse than they are. Do not insult them or estimate them worse than they are, so that they will not curse you as monkeys and pigs, and that their rage will not befall you. Consider that they are confused and praying to their evil in themselves, and are bringing themselves into ever worse positions, because they are continuously straying further and further from the right way of the truth. 82. And if they come to you in an upright wise, because they would like to learn something of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all primal power creation, then allow them to escape from their unknowledge of the truth by explaining the truth to them, so that they leave you as ones who are thirsty for knowledge regarding the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of all primal power creation, in order to concern themselves with the truth henceforth, and to be always connected to it. 83. And there are many amongst those who mock and joke about the truth who are only rebelling against the truth as mockers and jokers because they have been led into confusion by a godliness, religion, or sub-godlinesses, sex cults, and have fallen prey to false teachers of false prophets and self-appointed godheads and their priests and other servants, hands helpers. 84. And do not comply with the false teachings of these false prophets and self-appointed godheads who forbid you in maliciousness from eating and drinking of good things which taste good to you. Because truly it is terrible what they do with such false teachings, and they beat you into a godly, religious servitude, bondage, with it. 85. Therefore you also have scribes who bring you false teachings because they write down, the teachings of the false prophets faithfully. However, they falsify the true teaching of the true prophets. Therefore the scribes exert great might over you with their writing, because you fall prey to the words of their disingenuous eye powder, text writings books, and are hanging on believing in their false oaths guilefulness, and also your godly, religious and sectarian, priests and other servants, hands helpers of false teachings and gods, and tin gods spread falsehoods, deviousness amongst you. And truly everything that they do is of great disaster. 86. And the false prophets and their priests and servants, hands helpers, and servants of gods and servants of tin gods slander, calumniate the truth and lie that the truth teaching only serves the intention, purpose, of binding your hands, thoughts, and your inner world consciousness, so that you shall be accursed for the sake of what good things you learn through the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life. And they do insomuch that you shall become disloyal to the truth and become like people of their kind, like them. But know that the truth does not bind your hands, thoughts, nor your inner world consciousness, because on the contrary it opens your hands, thoughts, and your inner world consciousness, so you become free in it and find the way that allows your hands, thoughts, to reach ever further, by means of which you unendingly collect more and more knowledge and wisdom. Create more and more true love in yourselves and turn to the real peace and freedom as well as consonance, harmony. And use the powers, ideas, of your hands, thoughts, so that you may find the truth in yourselves. And do not allow turmoil to rise up in you through unknowledge and untruth, so that you are not cast against yourselves in hostility and you do not hate yourselves. Therefore do not kindle in yourselves the fire of battles, wars, with your hands, thoughts, but extinguish the fire of evil that burns you up from the inside, because you are striving for unright and unrighteousness, consciencelessness, and for virtuelessness, as well as for unpeace and unfreedom, bondage, as well as for chaos, because you are happy to wallow in it, as is the case with all causers of inequitableness, unfairness. 87. If your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, had been connected to the truth, then they would certainly, without doubt, also have fought and lost, eliminated, all the terrible things to which you are still attached to today and which you falsely indulge in with joy and do evil and unfairness, irresponsibility, as well as disingenuousness and dishonorableness and unrighteousness, consciencelessness. As you move far from outside of virtues, truly you do not move in the gardens of pleasures in you, but in gardens of evil that you have created in your inner nature. 88. If you followed the teaching of the prophets, the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of the light of the truth creation, then you would learn from all good things of the truth, so that you would understand what is above you and with you and what is below your feet. However, you are people, human beings, who only adhere to carry on the terrible path of idleness, laziness, in your hands, thoughts, and in your inner world, consciousness. Therefore you do not become aware, feel, what true terribleness is in you and what you do. 89. It has been announced to you that if you do not listen to the truth and do not do what the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of the light of the truth, creation, states as advantageous, recommended, for you because you do not want to hear its message, then you will also not find any protection from yourselves because you cannot protect yourselves against your own unright against yourselves. 90. If you are unknowing ones in the truth and unfair ones, irresponsible ones, without virtues and unrighteous ones, conscienceless ones, then you are based on nothing that makes your existence worth living. Because if you do not follow the truth that is brought to you by the goblet of the truth, by the teaching of the prophets, then you are stepping in the darkness of your inner world consciousness. And you will stumble continuously and permanently and be unable to find the way to the light of the truth. It is certain, however, that what the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the prophets, brings to you will make the turmoil and the unknowledge in you disappear when you turn towards the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, and you change from the unknowledgeness of the truth to the knowledgeness of the truth, so that you will no longer be troubled. 91. Truly, if you follow the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, then you will be without fear and dread, fright, and without too great sorrow when you are oppressed by terrible things or even by death, because truly the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the prophets, reveals to you everything required, necessary for you to manage your existence in all situations. 92. Truly, true prophets come to you, but you deal with them like your forefathers and foremothers, ancestors, forebears, did, because whenever they come to you with the goblet of the truth, the teaching of the truth of the laws and recommendations of the primal wellspring of the light of the truth, creation, then you do not wish to have them because your demand is not for the truth, rather for inner fulfillment of your desirousness, vice, wantonness, pathological cravings, urges, which are far from the truth. And you insult the true prophets as liars or even attempt to kill them, at the same time as paying homage to glorifying the false prophets and the priests and servants, hands helpers, of fabulated, invented, false godheads and tin gods, which are truthfully and without exception hazy pictures, imaginings, illusions. 93. And you think that you will not be challenged for your deviation from the truth. But you are wrong in this, because truly you are imposing a punishment on yourselves when you are blind and deaf to the truth, and you cannot find any honorable and upright pity for yourselves. 94. Truly, you are ones unknowing of the truth and believers in gods and tin gods if you give belief, assumptions, to godly, religious, priests and other servants of gods and servants of tin gods, and pray to their gods and tin gods as if they were indisputable and proven truthful reality. But truly, if you place gods and tin gods and priests or other servants of gods and servants of tin gods at the side of the primal power of all life, creation, then the truth of the primal power of all life, creation, and its laws and recommendations will remain refused, concealed from you, as there will be a dwelling of the shadow world, hell, in you with fire consuming you, from which you cannot liberate yourselves because, as great malefactors, truth deniers, you do not find any upright helpers. 95. Truly, those who pray to gods and tin gods are ones unknowing of the truth. And tin gods are not only those that are equivalent to gods, but tin gods are also cult objects that are esteemed, worshipped, deified in a godly, religious, wise, or are used as intermediaries, facilitators, intercessors, for gods and tin gods. 96. And truly, there is no one god or tin god of the firmaments, universe, and of earth's, worlds, planets, who would be a creator of the firmaments, universe, and of earth's, worlds, planets, because the primal wellspring of all activity, existence, is the wellspring of reality, creation, alone which animates, is interwoven and pulses through its creations in all firmaments, universe, and on all earths, worlds, planets, in true love. 97. Consider that if you are praying to a god or tin god, then you are praying to something that does not have the might to harm or benefit you. And if you pray to a person of your kind, human being, who raises himself or herself up as a godhead or a substitute or the like, then you are praying to a deceiver and blabbermouth, charlatan, who can bring you no salvation, prosperousness, well-being, liberation from terrible things, but only terrible things, exploitation and servitude, bondage. 98. See how the true prophets explain the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life and its signs, marvels, to the best, and see how you turn away from them and therefore continuously bring about in a suggestive and forceful wise all the bad and disastrous things of the world, such as battle, war, and hatred and bloody deed, murder, as well as revenge and retaliation, killing and unpeace, jealousy, strife, discord and outrageousness, misdeeds and iniquity, unfairness, and also defilement, crime, of all kinds, guilefulness, intrigues, lying and deception, and everything that is directed against the laws and recommendations of the primal power of all existence, creation. 99. You who hear the teaching of the truth, the teaching of the Spirit, the teaching of the life, see that you understand and follow it, so that you do not show contempt for the laws and recommendations of the creation of all things, creation, and you do not perform iniquitous deeds which are infringements, just as you do not follow evil penchants, talents. And you do not fall into confusion, and also do not lead any people of your kind, fellow human beings, into confusion who are on the right way. 100. Make sure that you do not persist in unknowledge of the truth, so that you do not curse yourselves with your own tongue when you are disobedient and commit an outrage against the laws and recommendations of the power of all powers, creation.